Well, here we are again. Newcastle drawing with Nottingham Forest. They're dropping points like I dropped my car keys. 27 points from winning positions this season. We've got strikers playing centre midfield. We've got centre midfielders playing as wingers. And then obviously we've got the dilemma of whether a fullback can play both sides and whether a centre-back can play fullback. But it is Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and I reckon we could all use a bit of support from each other after watching that display. I'm Adam, this is Two for Joy. If you're new around here, get down there, like and subscribe. We're going to go through all of it today. It's quite a deep, in-depth video. We're going to go through the press conferences, the match, the post-match press conference, and kind of look at the whole thing. But where I would like to start is, in all seriousness, it is Mental Health Week. In the UK, 1 in 8 men experience mental health issues like depression at some point in their lives. And statistically, men are less likely to reach out. So just remember, you're not alone. If there's anything we can do as a channel, as a community, get involved. Don't be afraid to say something. We're always here to support you. Now let's get into it. So we'll start off with a result and then work our way backwards. So Newcastle Notts Forest, it's a fairly even game. It wasn't the greatest performance from either side. Obviously Notts Forest with a whole host of injuries. And Harvey Barnes coming off the bench to get a great finish after Jacob Ramsey put in a great through ball. And Geordie Maradona coming back to haunt us as I knew he would. Fantastic player, Elliot Anderson, getting the goal to level it. But I want to start with the pre-match narrative and basically look at this because I see this all the time and it really gets under my skin how mainstream media wants to portray Eddie Howe or Newcastle, and they skim over it with little to no knowledge. And Ian Wright, Roy Keane, I think it was Jamie Redknapp talking about it before the game, and comments of how Eddie Howe should actually be setting the expectations to PIF rather than PIF setting the expectations to Eddie Howe, and misunderstanding the club structure entirely. I mean, realistically, Eddie Howe has had the largest transfer spend of any manager in Newcastle's history. He has this narrative around him that he is never there to be criticised. He is the media's star boy. He never makes a wrong decision, and it's the players' fault, the club's fault. It's everybody else's fault but his. And we'll go through this with some of the interviews. But obviously, the media narrative was to claim that Eddie Howe has evolved and he's changed this lineup, because when we saw it come out, it was suggested that Newcastle were playing a 3-5-2 with Jacob Murphy playing as a right wing back and Lewis Hall playing as a left wing back. A back lineup of Malik Chow, Sven Botman and Dan Burn. And then in the middle, being that solid centre midfield three of Joel Linton, Sandro Tonali and Bruno, with a front two of Voltemada and Asula. And I was up for this. When I saw this lineup, I thought, finally, Big Nick back up front with a runner off him. Eddie's finally seen that teams that sit in a low block, you have to attack them differently. And I thought, for a moment, let's see how this goes. I could get behind this. If we're actually going to evolve and we're going to look at changing things up, I am on board for it. And then the reality check came when the game started, and the actual formation was a 4-3-3 again. And Dan Burn was playing left back and Lewis Hall was playing right back. And we stick to this less expansive style of football. And all I could think was, well, at least we've got Nick Voltemada playing up front with Will Asula. Until I saw that Nick Voltemada's playing in midfield and Joel Linton's actually playing out left wing. And the number of players out of position in this match was absolutely wild. We've got a centre-back playing at left-back. We've got a left-back playing at right-back. We've got a centre midfielder playing at left wing. We've got a striker playing as a number 8, not even a number 10, a number 8. And then realistically, you look at the bench and we've got Anthony Elanga, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, Kieran Trippier, Jacob Ramsey. Players that can play in every one of those positions. So what I don't understand is why Lewis Hall wasn't playing left back, Kieran Trippier playing right back, Joel Linton playing in midfield, and Harvey Barnes playing left wing. And Eddie Howe's press conferences over and over again, it's the players that he trusts. He's going with the players that he trusts. Well, you've trusted Anthony Gordon all season long. Anthony Gordon's 100% committed to the club. You said it in your pre-match.
Just following on from that, you said last month, Eddie, you won't play any player if you don't feel 100% committed to the club and probably more importantly to its future. On the talk of Anthony Gordon, his representatives speaking to other clubs, if you're a man of your word, can you play him in these final 3 games?
If I'm a man of my word, I'll always do what's right for the team and best for the football club. Those comments weren't related to Anthony Gordon, they were general, and I like to think I've been consistent with that in my time as manager here, and that's not going to change now.
So you feel Anthony Gordon is 100% committed to the club and its future?
Yeah, he wouldn't be in the squad if that was the case, and I judge that, as I said many times, I don't judge that on communications elsewhere. I do that with my relationship with the player and how I see them train.
He's that committed, you're happy for him to warm the bench. And then in your post-match press conference, making points along the lines of these players that are playing today, they're the future. This team was picked based on the future of Newcastle, which suggests that the players you've got on the bench aren't favoured, and realistically, the players you've got playing on the pitch, Dan Burn, who turned 34 yesterday, is apparently the future of Newcastle. Nick Pope, at 33, is apparently the future of Newcastle. So I'm very confused by the messages that have come out from mainstream media and from the press conferences, and we'll go through some of the press conference stuff later on. But the in-game adjustments, on 22 minutes, Matt Sells goes down early, prompting Vitor Pereira to pull the team over and make changes to this lineup. He saw something that they could exploit 22 minutes in, and Newcastle started well. We were the more dominant team in the first 20 minutes, but Vitor Pereira saw something, swapped it, changed it up, and Nottingham Forest 22 minutes in changed formation and tried to overload Newcastle's backline. And what I will say is, from that change, Dan Burn caught out of position several times. Dan Burn was leaking down that left-back role. And their right wing just seemed to pile more pressure on and more pressure on down that right-hand side for them. And it really leaves me in a position where I question whether Eddie has the ability for proactive change. And a lot of people will turn around and say, well, in the second half, he proactively changed Jacob Ramsey and Harvey Barnes onto the pitch. But in my opinion, those aren't really proactive changes, because what you've done is you've brought on players that play the correct positions for players that shouldn't even be playing out of position to start with.
Eddie, just on Nick Wallamada, obviously, I don't think he started a game as striker in the Premier League since January. What was the sort of big change in that? Obviously, you had injuries, but why has he not just been sort of given that opportunity again? Because going back to that Chelsea game, where I think he was on a hat-trick going into half-time, that his whole world seems to have spun round completely.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to sort of go back to that moment. I think from the team's perspective and from Nick's perspective, he found goals harder to come by after a really strong start, and I felt I needed to do something slightly different in that respect.
This is an absolutely wild statement from Eddie Howe in the pre-match press conference when asked a simple question about Nick Wallamada. Realistically, why has Nick struggled? Maybe it's because I've been playing him in midfield rather than up front, and I haven't given him the opportunity to create or have any goal-scoring moments. And his world's kind of been flipped round upside down on his head. Yeah, well, you know, realistically, everybody has to do what's right for the team. So we thought playing a left winger up front might be more valuable or more of an asset to the team than playing a natural striker up front. As you can see from the results that I've got, realistically, I'm doing the right things for the team. You know, we've only dropped 27 points from winning positions and been on the worst run of form we've had in 4 years since January. But it has no correlation to Nick Voltemade not playing up front. It's obviously just the run of fixtures we had, and it's been a tough time. This is absolutely ridiculous, hearing this narrative over and over and over again. And we'll move on to some other parts.
We obviously looked at him in a new position, and he's played a variety of different roles within the team's setup. And of course, other players have then taken on the mantle of playing as the number 9, and in my opinion, have delivered that really well, whether it's Anthony Gordon or lately Will Asula. So I've always got to do what I think is right for the team. I never do anything other than try and get a positive result.
And while we're on the topic of players that have played out of position, realistically, Nick Voltemade playing as what seems to be a central midfielder or as an 8 rather than a 10 or a striker. Nick Voltemade created one of the best chances in the game, laying the ball off to Will Asula, and I'll run the clip. I have no issue with Will Asula missing this opportunity. The amount of minutes he's played and the performance he's put in and the effort he's put in for Newcastle United has been fantastic. But realistically, Nick Voltemade playing out of position does nothing for him, his career, or us as a football team. I feel like we're in a position now where I genuinely watch him every week and think, you need to move. You need to move for your career. Get out of this club as quick as you can, because what Eddie Howe is doing to you is leaving even the commentators and the media, every time Nick Voltemade misses a ball, misplaces a pass, poor touch from Voltemade, poor pass from Voltemade, poor positioning from Voltemade. Realistically, Nick Voltemade created probably 3 of the best chances in this game. But the narrative is so heavily spun by the media towards Eddie Howe, and Eddie Howe's narrative of him not putting in the effort. There's a moment in this game where Bruno loses the ball on the halfway line and Nick Voltemade sprints back 40 yards and makes a tackle. There is no way, from looking at these performances and his performance at Arsenal where he created a chance for Wissa, and Eddie Howe said in the press conference, if he plays like that more often, he'll get more minutes. There is no way this guy is not putting in the effort. The eye test tells you that he is. But realistically, Eddie Howe doesn't fancy him. And I think that narrative is bigger than the narrative that's being spun in the media. But let's go on to Eddie Howe's press conference.
Harvey scores a great goal, and at that moment you think we're going to go on and win the game, and just a hugely frustrating feeling that we weren't able to capitalise on that, and a familiar feeling of losing a lead.
You mentioned there Harvey Barnes, he opened the score in a great goal. It looked like you had control. How frustrating was it to not see the game out?
Yeah, it was. I think the big thing to look at is 2 things really. Of course, the defending for the goal we'll analyse and look at, but I think the fact we didn't take one of our chances that we created to go 2-0 ahead, and I think the best form of defence is always to attack and to score. And I thought we had the chances to do so. I thought there's a number of really good presentable opportunities for us, and then you're only one mistake away from losing those points, and that's what happened. So yeah, we're disappointed.
So on that point, when Eddie says we'll have a look at the defensive mistakes and see what happened, I think what happened was the fact that you were playing Lewis Hall, who looked to have picked up an injury out of position, and while Eddie kind of goes with the narrative that it's a defensive mistake and it's down to the players, realistically this is a tactical decision made by the manager, not a defensive mistake made by a player. You had Kieran Trippier sat on the bench. He's fully fit. He's able to play. He came on. So play him.
Wouldn't your last 4 games at the City Ground quite a good place for your side to go to? What do you feel was missing to obviously come away with 3 points? Is it more than just the attacking side and the chances you created, or anything else?
No, I think I've just said the ability to go 2-0 was where we needed to be, in my opinion. And then, of course, if you can't go 2-0, you need to defend that 1 goal lead better than we did.
How encouraged were you with the substitutes? Obviously, Jacob Ramsey got the assist, Harvey Barnes scored the goal. How pleased were you with their impact?
Yeah, really pleased, because I think you bring players on, of course, because you want to change the game in a positive manner, but the players have to come on with the right attitude, and I thought both players did, and the goal I thought was one of the best goals we've scored this season. I think it was a really good build-up from Joelinton and Bruno, if my memory's right. And then JJ plays the final pass to Harvey's really well-timed run, and it was an outstanding finish. So it was probably one of our best constructed goals, as I say, of the season, and it would have been fitting for that to win the game, but it wasn't to be.
So to take nothing away from Harvey Barnes here, as it was a fantastic finish and it was a great through ball from Jacob Ramsey, but when you turn around and say, we need to create more opportunities and we need to take our chances, realistically, you've got Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, Anthony Elanga, Jacob Ramsey, all sat on the bench, plus Wissa. The players that you've stated have the ability to take this team forward, you've benched all of them. And you've left us with a front three of, take nothing away from Willasula. He's been fantastic. And I don't want to criticise Willasula at all, because I think this lad has put in maximum effort. But you've got a lad that's had junk minutes, let's be honest, up until the point that Anthony Gordon got injured. Jacob Murphy, who's done pretty much fuck all season. And Joel Linton, who's a centre midfielder playing left wing. And while Joel Linton I thought was fantastic today, he would have been much better served being as a centre midfielder than he would be as a winger.
It was Harvey's 16th goal of the season in all competitions. How pleased have you been with his return in front of goal overall this season?
Yeah, well, that's an amazing return for a wide player, and yes, he scored the majority of his goals, a lot of his goals in Europe. But he's just been such a reliable performer for us off both sides. I mean, it's great to see him score off the right today. He's done well off the left for us historically. He's just got a great attitude to the game, but also he's got a great mentality in front of goal. He's a deadly finisher when he gets his chance, and I'm delighted for him because he's such a good lad.
Lewis Hall began at right back for today's game, his 100th appearance for his boyhood club. What was the reason behind that decision, and how do you feel he got on today?
Yeah, I thought Lewis did okay. I think it's probably overhyped. If you're a good technical player, I think you can play off both sides. It's the same position, just obviously the dynamics are slightly different. But I thought he used the ball well. I thought he defended well, and obviously I'm sort of looking with a view to the future.
So on that point, that if you're a technically gifted player, you can play on both sides. Obviously, Lewis Hall playing at right back would be no issue. But Anthony Gordon, that technically gifted player that you've relied on all season, that you've stuck on the bench, who refused to play right wing and will only play left wing or up front. The narrative around this is absolutely ridiculous. The only reason Anthony Gordon won't play right wing is because for England, he wants to pose himself as a left winger or as a striker to keep himself in the remit of being in that England team and being available. And the reason I believe this is because he cannot get in that England squad ahead of Bukayo Saka. Realistically, Anthony Gordon never starts ahead of Bukayo Saka, so he's always tried to be a left winger so that he can put himself in that picture for Thomas Tuchel. Realistically, Lewis Hall has played 15 minutes previously for Newcastle is in his entire career at right back, and you've decided to throw him in for a full 90 after dropping him. And what I don't understand is, with a view to the future, I said this earlier, with a view to the future, you're playing Dan Burn at 34 and Nick Pope at 33, and with a view to the future, you must be looking at signing fullbacks. We have limited numbers of fullbacks. We have Emil Kraft about to leave, Kieran Trippier about to leave, Matt Targett about to go. So we have one fullback that's continuously fit, which is Lewis Hall, and Tino Livramento, who is wrecked for half the season. We are playing Lewis Miley most of the time as a right back rather than as a centre midfielder, and Dan Burn as a left back. This is grave mismanagement, in my opinion.
And you've got West Ham next week, your final home game of the season. How determined are you to try and end your campaign at St James's Park in positive fashion?
Yeah, I mean, it's a must for us. I think I've already spoke to the players about that. Our last home game, it's a big occasion for us. We want to leave a positive feeling for our supporters to go through the summer with. I want them to leave with really good feelings about the team. So this is a huge game in our season.
So realistically, after that interview, the only thing I could think was the narrative of looking forward and looking to the future. I said this in a previous video. Alex Murphy, Park Seung-soo, Antonio Cordero, Leo Shahar, these players, these young players are all around the first team. They are all playing well in the 21s. They're getting good minutes. We are at the end of a season where we are not realistically going to get anything from these final 3 games. Blood these players now. Realistically, Eddie Howe does not want to look to the future of Newcastle's youth setup to bring players through. The only player he's brought through is Lewis Miley, and realistically, I feel Lewis Miley all season has been mismanaged with his injuries, with a dead leg going from a dead leg to muscle injury to now what seems to be a broken leg. And realistically, I don't think that's a coincidence in the fact that Lewis Miley is now out for 3 months. I do believe this was mismanaged. I don't believe the club have looked at this, in my opinion, have looked at this correctly. But at this point, Newcastle must realise that if they're not going to change, if Eddie's not going to give evolution to this club, the rebuild is going to be harder than they ever thought before. And Ross Wilson needs to be the guy that kind of steps up and shows his worth over this summer window after seeing these types of displays. And you can see Eddie Howe's reluctancy to adapt at the core of this. So where I'd like to finish, it's been a tough week. It's been a tough couple of weeks, a tough couple of months. But I would like to finish on the mental health awareness again and just say there's links down in the description. If you need to talk to somebody, there is so many avenues for you to go to. If you don't want to go to those avenues, the community here will support you. We're all in it together. Hopefully, guys, you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully, I haven't ranted too much. Like, subscribe, hype the video. And hopefully, guys, I will see you in the next one. This is like the cuts of a bad movie at the end. Just to let you know, everything in this video is my opinion only. If you disagree with it, get down there in the comments. Let me know. And thanks for watching. Stay safe.